Hello, I am Couch Cooper and welcome to my newest sci-fi list. This is the third installation. It's kind of like a biannual thing. Have a look at the older list, they're quite big, and this has got very modern 22 games in it, and they're all non-indie as well. That's a huge area. Sci-fi indie, AAA, big budget. Let's do this. If you have had a look at that older material, you'll know that one of those lists features No Man's Sky. I think a 2016 No Man's Sky. I was looking at some of that footage the other day. Really strange seeing the stations not having that reflective floor, and so much has changed that I feel I need to put this back on a fresh sci-fi list. It's doing everything correctly now. Look at the fluidity of landing on a planet, it loading in, some of these beautiful effects on the mist and the ground. Everything is how I kind of imagined it would be on launch. Silly thing to do. This list is really going to focus on sci-fi games that have a decent campaign, and especially offline sci-fi games. And this one's incredible now because its campaign is very fleshed out and it's got loads of options and storylines to go down, and everything from intricacy to ship class and type to different weapons being thrown in has made this game massive. It's up there with Ark Survival now. It's totally huge and works on a multiplayer level, but does it work on a single player space adventure level, which is what it was originally pitched to do? Totally yes. You could say that it's become a bit grindy, but it did completely lack any structure at the start of its launch. So there needs to be some sort of implementation of opening up new areas to the galaxy. There's this thing with the red and green solar systems that blatantly offer loads more variation on everything, and getting to those requires some task-driven missions. Using that sort of bench of discovery really gives it the pull for me to put the work in, get a better ship, start upgrading things, befriend more alien races, increase my base and amount of vehicles. That's something we'll get to in a second, but that incentive is so there now. It took Hello Games a long time, and we're still not there, but the implementation of that new Sentinels update, which I reviewed quite extensively recently, link in description, is really kind of one of the final pieces to making this game an absolute masterpiece. Its size and now customization areas giving you more incentive to sort of get a new spacesuit or even look for that cool rare ship. And that's one of the keys, is the randomization. Even though that procedural generation was a massive selling point at the start of the launch, hemming that in a little bit and sort of funneling you into giving you some amazing unlocks incrementally is what good game design is all about. And they've had to sort of get on top of that, and they have, but it's taken 5 years, but wow, we're in a cool place now. I've also been on a bit of a sci-fi journey since making the last list. I've been heavily into getting the retro sci-fi back catalogue out the way for the film front, and getting into a lot of really bad older sci-fi films. I'm getting into Mystery Science Theater, and I'm discovering all of that really cool content that surrounds funny, badly made sci-fi films. Ed Wood, I don't need to preach to you guys about how amazing that sort of universe is, and No Man's Sky kind of plays on that a little bit, I think, with some of its funny, campy enemy design and creature design, and of course the outlandish, awesome colours and the ships that it uses. It's a real cool homage to a lot of sci-fi history, and I'm very comfortable with how this game looks and plays now. I only hope we see a hell of a lot more from Hello Games. They do have some more updates planned. Of course, the roadmap's extensive, and I do have a lot of interest in building this hard frame amazing mech dude. Every time something drops in, it's so much fun to have a look at, especially the mounting of the creatures. As far as intergalactic space travel games go and the discovery of it all, this is kind of up there with one of the best. Elite Dangerous is also very good in that category, but lacks that detail on the planetary surface, but it was covered also before. It hasn't been facelifted and updated like this game has, so on to the next one.
You and me. Wow, look at this place. It's so more monsters coming to kill us.
And next up, Halo Infinite's campaign comes in. A bit of a strange situation here, but waiting for the co-op to come in May 22nd, I think. Don't know where I plucked that date from, but we're definitely looking forward to that. It's very much a single player experience at the moment, but more importantly, it's an open world experience, which is not a huge first angle for the Halo franchise, but it's certainly expanded on here massively. It's the first time I've got to talk properly about a Halo game within this list system. They've never been in the previous, because it's always been a very PlayStation 4 focus. Now we get to try the brand new Halo game on Game Pass, and I'm seeing it in some incredible specs. The whole thing is absolutely gorgeous, and to take this open world angle, which is kind of a trend, look at Elden Ring, franchises laying their systems over onto an open world setup is kind of a genius idea, and it works so well. The addition of the winch, but everything is really ramped up with its budget. It is a colossal looking game. Sci-fi wise, they kind of nailed it with the alien races, and they've also kind of marked themselves out as a genre leader with vehicles, especially flying vehicles on a multiplayer level. These things have had a lot of work done to them. They're beautiful and smooth. The warthogs, the bounce physics, the destruction, everything is super cool with the Halo series. I've gone back to the campaign after extensive online PvP play. Look at these poor guys. I'm a machine. It had some real issues with its performance on its launch on some PC systems. It was very strange, and I had to repair it loads, and it wouldn't fire up within the Microsoft Store, and I've had my previous save data corrupted, so I've had to go from the beginning again, which was really nice to look at that intro section with a lot of detail, because once you get to that open world area, you kind of forget about how crazy a prologue that is. It's really push you down, get you to learn everything, and you just let rip. I suppose Halo is kind of the daddy of modern sci-fi. It's hard to think of anything that's been this fleshed out and this well constructed. I'm talking about the lore and all the books and the whole series of games. It's an extensive space opera almost now, and it's definitely got a solid place in the genre's timeline. I do want to see more, however, on that single player front, and I imagine when May comes around there'll be more content for us to get our teeth into, and I'm pretty sure they'll switch this campaign up a lot. I'd be very surprised if they keep all of this in the same place and just have a team of 4 run through it, and I'll be interested to see how big the teams are actually.
It's the end of you.
That winch is ridiculously good, the multiplayer is ridiculously good, and on Game Pass, this is ridiculously good. Halo Infinite. Well, this is a little bit bittersweet. We're looking at Horizon Forbidden West, which is clearly one of the best looking games on the PlayStation 5 available at the moment, and it's an open world dystopian, future-esque environment where you fight sort of nano-ridden crazy robots that mimic dinosaurs and scary animals. I remember the original Horizon featuring extremely highly on the first video I ever did. It was kind of what inspired the whole series. I never forget someone in the comments saying, you know, it's more of a dystopia than it is sci-fi. I'm thinking, what the hell are you on about? What do you think these dinosaurs are made of? Hey, defo sci-fi game. When it comes to story-driven content, Guerrilla did an incredible job with the first game, and they haven't held back on pushing new characters at you and really giving some extensive backlore to why you're doing all this sort of stuff. And it has succeeded in certain areas, but it's also feeling quite railsy. What I mean by that is that wandering off the beaten track isn't promoted really, and Aloy doesn't stay quiet about what you need to do next, and that's something that's a little bit pressurous for somebody who's used to that sandbox open world style of game that it was billed as when it came out of the gates as Horizon Zero Dawn.
This power cell can get it running.
I'm really conscious of being sucked in by its visuals and not paying attention to what's changed or whether or not this is something that's appealing a little bit more to the sort of Ubisoft crowd with the open world system. I think they might have felt that they alienated some of their audience with their original launch, because these are the guys that made Killzone, for God's sake. So the die-hard fans were totally overjoyed with that change of direction with the original Horizon, and I feel they may be under pressure from Sony to sort of make it as middle of the road as possible. Which they 200% succeeded in. However, it is an incredible world, and you've only got to look at some of ACG's material. We're talking about the detail, walking through the map, looking at everything and how it all operates, the autonomy of the AI and its existence within that map, going about its business, feeding, protectors. It's huge on that front, and from an observer's point of view, it's an incredible piece of work. It doesn't feature a single spaceship, come to think of it. It does have a lot of lasers in it, and it's got a return of that character whose voice, I'm pretty sure, is the same guy as the President in Rick and Morty, which has really taken the edge off me for him. I can't take him seriously now whenever he pipes up. I think, for me, 80% of its sci-fi attraction is within these creatures and these animals, machine type hybrid beings that exist in this world are absolutely phenomenal. That is enough. That's the ticket admission for me. Fighting them in a Monster Hunter style, no lock on. It just gives you this sort of freedom, Ghost of Tsushima feel. They're all jumping around over your head and using a lot of contraptions and traps. That's one of the things that it did pride itself on as a previous game, were these amazing ideas of looking at the root of the dinosaur and then laying down preparation and then attacking and watching it all unfold. I'm kind of in a strange place with the game because I loved its original so much. I've got a lot of time for Aloy's character and that lore surrounding how this world sort of came about. But it's just a little bit too similar, a little bit too safe. It's also feeling very previous gen to me as well. With its size, I'm talking about the lack of differences in some of the models they've used. I thought this was going to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive. I thought it was going to roll out the gate like the system seller that Horizon Zero Dawn was for the PlayStation 4. And let's be honest here, guys, that everyone on the PC was waiting for that release. People who own Xbox One X's were like, crap, Sony's got a system seller, and it was in the form of the original game. So I'll be really interested to see how the sales do for the rest of the year. As far as sci-fi goes, though, I mean, that bird is the stuff of nightmares. Talking of nightmares, and let's get over to CDPR, and oh my god, Coop, if you put Cyberpunk 2077, and yes, we are at number 2 on my top sci-fi games for 2021-2022, what the hell? Wow. Well, it did kind of do itself okay in the end on the current gen systems, be it the PlayStation 4 Pro and the PlayStation 5. Of course, PC owners had it good out the gate, but then again, we did have all of that corruption and issues with quest breaking and nothing really happening with the AI and pedestrian lack of vehicle. I mean, it was just such a crazy tale, and it's good to see it been able to stand up against a game like Horizon Forbidden West for a good sci-fi open world experience. Personally, Cyberpunk is now way more interesting. The cyberpunk genre massively interests me in gaming, full stop. It's huge, and it goes back to the beginning of gaming. Some of the most earliest video games were cyberpunk based. One of my favorites is something called the Omnicron Conspiracy, not to get confused, and it was basically, you were like an intergalactic ranger who had gone down on a planet, and you could walk the streets, walk past NPCs. There was like 3 of them. I'll see if I can grab a screenshot, but it was a hell of a game. And it really hasn't left my brain, and I've always thought, I wonder what the modern inception of that idea is going to look like, and my god. Most of this footage is going to have the ray tracing on. You have to forgive me, I sort of switch it out. It all depends on what I'm doing. If I'm trying to get that smooth photo mode, I do a lot of captures for Instagram, you'll see that I will switch it because I don't want any staggered. I have to sacrifice my ray tracing though. But if I'm kind of playing the game, normally like driving around, especially walking around, and especially at night, you should definitely put the ray tracing on and have a good look at how crisp those shadows become. The rain is rare as rocking horse shit in this game. I was so pleased that I caught some for it. And it just is a beautifully built city. There is no denying that. I was thinking on preparation to putting these games together that this is probably the one that's sober with its sci-fi ideas. It's not going crazy. Of course it can't because it's not set that far in the distant future, but it still does push on some amazing vehicle types and having those flyers in there. Can't believe you can't get a flyer. That has definitely got to be DLC, but the weapons as well. And of course the NPCs and characters. It's all about nanotech and people having stuff bolted onto their bodies, DSX. What I have been disappointed about in hindsight is how crazy they could have gone with the enemies and their design. Like the Maelstrom gang, they could have been more of that really frightening android style enemies and more machines. There's not really any mechs in it apart from those police mechs, which is a huge tragic waste of mech, and flyers, helicopters with legs, giant spiders. I'm talking like Watchdog sort of stuff. That might get pumped in. We haven't had a decent police force put in yet, so fingers crossed we'll see in Ed 209. I think we are going to see a No Man's Sky with this game. What I'm talking about is there was enough copies bought and CDPR aren't financially on their arse to be able to make this game amazing over a half-decade period. What are we in now? 2 years? No, yeah, a year and a half in, and it's kind of, what, let's say 60% of what we want out of it. The rest of that could be made up with a decent police system, but there's not really much left else they need to do on the performance front. It's a stunning, jaw-dropping game. When people come around and they see this in 4K on an HDR TV, all of those neon lights going at night, maybe it's raining, it's so beautiful. It's also, and it's not spoken about this much, got some quite good writing in it. Not all of them were pushed out the door after The Witcher 3, and some of those quest lines and plot lines, even the sub-quests, are heartbreaking, and the stories within this city that if you take the time to look at, really does increase the amount of love you have for the game, because it wasn't lazy, that area. The AI and the driving, that's another kettle of fish. I've actually got a hell of a lot of time for the game now. I really do enjoy going through it again. I'm doing a hard replay, not out of choice. My save file was corrupted from the PlayStation 4. I was up to like 50 hours. It's something weird happened when I changed profiles. I had some issues with that UK UAE stuff. So it's all kind of gone, and I'm like, I don't care. I need to go through it again because those quests have all been fixed now, including the Jackie quest, which was kind of bust, and that was one of the biggest opening quests in the game. But look at these visuals and this city and these stories. Come on, Cyberpunk is worth looking at now. Okay, we are at number 1, and yes, he has gone and put a PlayStation 5 exclusive. It is Returnal. Don't get me started on PlayStation 5 exclusives. We all need to go out and get a copy of Ratchet and Clank and Demon Souls remake and put them in a CD because it looks like they were anomalies. We're never getting that again. Gran Turismo 7, get out. That's on the PlayStation 4 base. What is so sci-fi about Returnal, Coop? Well, they're doing this Deathloop thing at the moment. Deathloop even did a Deathloop and didn't do it as good as Returnal. Basically, what that means is what that is you can't escape from a loop. You're dying and reappearing in the same space, like a little roguelike-y idea, but put into a big old AAA game. It's been a bit of a trend over the last couple of years, and I like the idea. It's cool to lose all your crap and have to concentrate, do runs, really make sure you give the game your effort. It's also got an incredible fractured backstory that's revealed to you as you stagger through the various levels, and the bits are few and far between, and they're about her, some of the issues she's having, maybe in her real life, or is she actually in this dimension, is she even an astronaut? It's crazy good, and it keeps you guessing the whole way through the campaign. It's nearly up there with the stellar gameplay. I have spoken about its Geiger Promethean influences before, but really looking at it now, it's had a few updates, especially a photo mode put in. I've got to see this game in some huge detail, and it is incredible from top to tail. It doesn't let off with how perfect it's kind of been put together, and that's one of the things that's miffed me about this whole current gen issue, is that I want to see loads more games like Returnal, which are not shackled by a previous gen system, and it's just the team's gone ham with all particles, all neons, all the tile switching out and variety. Damn you, PlayStation 4 owners. I'm kind of being a bit facetious there, but you get my point. It's really good to have the PlayStation 5 exclusive in the form of Returnal, and from Housemarque as well, who are no strangers to the sci-fi canon with their games, including Stardust being one of their first ever, which was basically, it was an asteroid flying down a corridor, shoot 'em up, if I remember correctly. Returnal was easily my best sci-fi game of 2021 by a square mile, because of the effort they put into a lot of the design of her weaponry and power-ups, and of course the enemies and who you were fighting, and the sheer ferocity at which the game ran. I had a bit of a moment where I got stuck on the first boss for about 6 months. We got past it in the end, but my god, the game did nearly break me. There's a bit coming up here where it is quite clear the amount of particles in air and effects going on, that this is, past fast load times and 60 frames and maybe a performance mode. This is something else. Returnal is kind of a groundbreaker for me. I think we're due something else from Housemarque pretty soon, maybe in the form of a new game, maybe in the form of some DLC, paid DLC for this, something chunky, because it's been a little while and they've been very quiet, and I think we want more exclusives, and those guys obviously know how to make them. Fingers crossed it will be soon. And if you've not ever stepped foot into the dark sci-fi universe that is the Returnal story, you got to go for it. And if you get stuck on that first boss for 6 months, don't worry, it happened to the best of us. I, of course, have been Couch Coop, and I will see you down there. And if you've not seen any of these lists before, all links in description. And let me know what I've missed, and let me know if I should do this with indie games, the best sci-fi indies